Today's guest is Professor Green.
The symptoms of my ADHD were invisible for a long time. So I got referred to a psychiatrist, just gave him all the details of everything that I'd done. I can't keep putting myself in the same situations and going, oh, I'm autistic, I'm ADHD. It's about now building support in the places where I need it.
Hi everybody, welcome back to On The Mend. This is Matt Willis, and this show we look back to move forward, right? And today we have Professor Green. I've just seen you introduce yourself as Stephen to people.
Yeah, always.
So I'm like, so you're Stephen?
Yeah, with a PH.
It's so funny.
Don't call me Steve.
Don't call you Steve. Okay. Because I'm like, do I call you Stephen? Do I call you Professor Green? Because I've even messaged you on Instagram in the past, and I'm like, do I write
Stephen, always Stephen.
Prof?
I've
Professor?
never, do you know what? I've never, Skinny Man calls me Prof. I don't think anyone else has ever called me that. My pals who I've known since I was yay high call me Pro, which is weird.
Yeah.
Or Green. And then people I don't know, I think because I always introduce myself as Stephen. Whatever TV I'm doing, it's always Stephen. People I don't know will call me Stephen when I'm walking down the road, and I still get that thing where I'm like, what have I done? It doesn't ever disappear, does it? Stephen!
Do you think of it like, is it almost like an alter ego, Professor Green? Is it like another little character that you can go into?
Do you know what? It wasn't. I feel like now there's an element of that. Professor Green allows me to be free.
Yeah.
In the studio and creatively, I can delve back into what I used to do.
Yeah.
I like talking about what's going on presently as well, but sometimes things take a while to process. Well, I'm learning now that it takes me quite a long while to process things. But it's nice being able to delve back into things that were and to be cheeky and have that bravado, but then to be able to park that and walk out and just be as I want to be.
I heard you recently describe yourself as a work in progress.
Yeah, man.
Which I thought was a fucking good thing to describe yourself as, because I feel very much the same. You know, do you want to talk a little bit about that? What do you mean by that?
Something that I wrote down not long ago is, I'm not what I've done, I am what I do. There's no real, nothing exists apart from now. Our memories exist for us, but they're just things we remind ourselves of. And if I live then, I'm just perpetuating hell, especially when it comes down to when things got bad. I don't want to keep reliving that. And it's difficult. Sometimes you have to move from people who want to keep you there because that's the only you that they can identify with, or that's the you that they're stuck on. And that's tough, but it's important that, I'm not what I've done. I am what I do.
You told our production team, look back but don't stare.
Yeah, man. Big up Trigger, my old TM. Big up Trigger.
Is that what he said?
He said,
Really?
And he's done 12 steps and everything else, and he found his way out of proper bad times.
Yeah.
Bottle of vodka before he went out and the salt. And he was just like, look back but don't stare. And I think that's important because you can't. I've always been at the mercy of. Always up until a couple of years ago, I'd say, been at the mercy of looking too far ahead and worrying or looking back and worrying.
Yeah.
I can't predict what's in the future. My brain's trying to all the time. Our brains do. That's how we survive, right? But, looking back, you can't change any of it. And I get shame. Have you seen the Charlie Sheen documentary?
No, it's one thing I haven't watched.
Oh, mate, it's heavy.
I
but
find it hard to watch things like that.
But it's the shame shivers. It's that.
Yeah.
That's what he calls them, shame shivers.
Really?
And there's moments I remember and they'll pop up into my head from out of nowhere. And if I get stuck on them, I'm just it's weird. I feel like those feelings are what perpetuates the journey towards, or probably continues being like the journey towards addiction or being an addict. It's weird, isn't it? Because you always feel shame after what you've done.
Yeah.
But it's almost like that's what perpetuates the continuing of that behavior.
Yeah.
So I just try and go, okay, that was then, I sit with it for a second and then it's not now.
You've mentioned that you've got ADHD and autism. Can you tell me more about how that came about?
Yeah, man. It's 40 years of being me nearly killed me. Ran to a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I actually got referred during couples therapy. And
mate, that's exactly what happened to me.
Mad.
Dude, that's fucking blown my mind. That's exactly what happened to me. I went to couples therapy and they said, you need to be checked out. I was like, don't fucking put this on me.
Wait, are you making me wholly responsible for what I went here? Yeah, no, law of averages. One person can never be entirely responsible for all problems owing to a dynamic of two. But so I got referred to a psychiatrist, brilliant psychiatrist, Dr. Justin Baskill. Did the assessment. I say did the assessment. I had the forms it took me about 3 months to get them back, which was basically a diagnosis on its own, wasn't it? And then he referred me to another doctor for an autism assessment. When that came back, it was like 3 pages. And I was like, I think this means I'm autistic. And I couldn't really identify with it. It was really hard to take that on. And I had to call the psychiatrist and ask her. And she was like, I don't give one word reports. And I was like, but I think this means she was like, yeah. And I was like, a high functioning? She's like, that doesn't exist. There is no such thing as high functioning. It's just a term that people use. It's ASD 1, level 1. And I was like, is that why I'm smiling, but I'm not happy? And she's like, probably.
Mate.
It's a way to regulate. And I think I got in trouble for it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Tapping, humming, all sorts. I used to have a tick. I would tense a muscle when people were speaking, every word they spoke. And which is loads of little things that seem insignificant, but as part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, all makes sense.
Yeah, and the smiling thing, I would get in so much trouble. Like if someone was shouting at me, I would immediately but apparently that is a way of regulating. It's your way of, I feel quite overwhelmed by feelings. It's not a case of like me having no empathy or not having feelings. I have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
And I can quite easily react to them. Like I'll have physical reactions, like things make me want to invert. If I don't like something, I don't just not like it. I have an aversion to it.
Yeah.
And so finding these things out, like going through the autism assessment, especially like having to speak to my grandmother who just, no, you were a normal kid. But my uncle was there throughout my entire childhood. He had severe epilepsy, is likely autistic himself actually. Had learning difficulties, and so lived at home, still lives at home. He's brilliant. Thank God for him. Cheers for changing my nappies, Mark. But he was able to give me honest answer about everything. And it was always there. And it's kind of crazy to me because I saw a psychiatrist as a kid and, generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, all these things that I was told I was at the mercy of, depression. And they were all owing to this thing that was behind it.
Yeah.
All, I think. And there was so much focus on me being bright, despite the fact that I could literally not get to school. Putting my school uniform on was the worst thing in the world every single day. It felt like it felt literally like I was having my head put underwater. It's like I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But then if I ever did get to school, I would do so well in my work that the focus point was, but he's so bright, we've just got to get him into school.
If
no
only
conversation around, but no
yeah.
conversation around why I couldn't get there.
Yeah.
It's strange to me, man. Like it's easy to be like, oh, well, people didn't even talk about those things in the 80s, but psychiatrists must have, surely.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was known about.
Yeah. So the fact that everything else was, presented as the issue when actually there was these other two things at play, which they're not an answer for everything. And this is an important thing to say, I think, is that they're not excuse for anything.
Yeah.
They are reason up to a point, but understanding them now or having some grasp on them, I don't understand them entirely. They're not excuse for things. I can't keep putting myself in the same situations and going, oh, I'm autistic. Oh, I'm ADHD. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's about now building support in the places where I need it. As opposed to aligning myself of, just a group of people who have similar afflictions, which I think is really easy to do when you find your tribe, right? Because we relate. We don't realize what none of my mates require constant contact. And I just thought that was normal.
Yeah.
I thought that was fucking normal.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that was normal.
Yeah.
Like we don't see each other for a year at a time, but we're still best mates. If you are, you ask my pals on the other side of the word, who's your best friend? Stephen. And I would say the same about him. It's not normal. There's another set of people.
Yeah.
Probably neurotypical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who require regular contact or prefer regular contact and engage with their friends consistently, and they show up and they never flake and they're, and they hold each other accountable. Whereas me and my mates, it's like, oh, you let me down at last minute. Sweet, no drama, man. I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't apply those expectations to friendships and I come unstuck when other people do.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize until this, and I was like, wait a minute. You start to assess things, don't you? When you get a diagnosis, you just look around and you go,
yeah. I've had to work really hard at things like that. Like with my wife especially. Like she's a 8 times a day, and like that is alien to me. And I'm like, oh,
every day, or are there days where you are like 8 times a day, and then days when you're not?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm like I could ignore 8 of them, and be in trouble, So like I have to fucking, like.
Do you not apply obligation? You don't do that thing
what
where
do you mean?
See oh mate, I'm terrible. I get a message through the door, and I'm like. What does it mean? My brain just gets completely hijacked.
Well, I get like that with voice notes. Like if it's a voice note, like something is like I repel from voice notes because I think, I've got to listen to that and I'm going to have to retain that, and something about it just makes me go, nah.
Yeah,
So
that's me in letters.
I don't listen to voice notes.
That's me in letters. I don't open them.
Really?
Bad. Yeah.
So what do you mean? So you don't open any letters?
I can't. I find it so difficult.
Right.
There's things that without company I cannot do, and I don't need the company to assist me necessarily. I just need. It's weird. It's so fucking silly, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm 42 and I don't open letters.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
But if someone's there, you will?
I can, yeah.
Right, okay.
I need distraction from the thing I have to do. So if I've got paperwork, I kind of need someone there, not to assist me in actually like the physical act of doing it or organising or any of those things. I just need distraction. And then I can focus. Make sense of that.
Right,
It's
wow.
fucking weird. It's silly.
But it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But grow up. But then also don't. Just accept what you can and can't do and work out ways of either improving what you can't or just focus on the things that you are really, really good at. I've seen some stuff around ADHD being partly environmental. And it makes sense, right? Because the symptoms of my ADHD were invisible for a long time, almost. Not entirely, but kind of. And then they were so exacerbated by a set of circumstances. When I look back at it now, I realize, again, to my point about being able to change circumstances, is the most important decision you'll make is your environment, because it will bring good or it will bring bad.
We've all been in a situation when traveling, where you get off the plane, open up your phone to check messages or maps, and you have no signal, no data, nothing. So then you're queuing at the airport for an overpriced SIM card and potentially getting scammed. Or even worse, you're using data roaming while you're away and getting hit with a massive bill when you get home. We've all been there, me included. Well, not anymore, thanks to Saily. Saily is a new eSIM service app. What that means is when you land, it connects you straight to the local network, so you can get internet immediately in over 200 destinations. You just download the app, choose your plan, install the eSIM once, and you're ready to go. And it's affordable. Plus, you can earn Saily credits back to use for your next time. So if you're traveling soon, this is one less thing to worry about. Download Saily in the App Store or by scanning the QR code on screen and use code MEND at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. All the details are in the episode description. Life with my family, work and everything else can get a bit chaotic, but staying on top of my health is one thing I know that I can control. For me, it's about keeping it simple and consistent. That's where Vitals by Heights comes in. When I look at my diary, it's packed, right? With kids, the podcast, shows, everything else, it's easy to let my health slip down the priority list. But I've learned that staying consistent with the basics, like my daily health routine, keeps me going through the chaos. 2 small capsules each morning give me everything I need to stay energized, focused, and on top of my game. No complicated routines, no hassle. I need simplicity, and Vitals takes the guesswork out of maintaining my energy and performance. Whether heading for a full day's worth of On The Mend records or chasing after the kids, I know I've got the right fuel to keep up. If you want to make health simple and consistent like I have, click the link in our description and use code OTM20 to get 20% off your first month. If this feels familiar, please follow the podcast. There's a whole community here that are all going through it with you. I want to talk to you a little bit about substance use. I mean, because it's obviously something that I think people would naturally associate you with in a way, being called Professor Green.
My behaviour was that of an addict at points. It wasn't constant though. I had a period of experimentation in my 20s from like 21 to 22, 23, and then I stopped everything. Mike Skinner said to me, "You're hanging around the wrong people." It was when I was signed to his label, and I stopped everything. And then I didn't start doing drugs again until I was nearly 30. There was no drugs across my first and second album apart from a couple of draws on Naughty Boy's spliff when I got to the studio for the first session on the first album, and the opening lines reference it. But yeah, drugs weren't a part of me creating, neither was drink. You know, when I was doing shows, I would drink, but no drugs.
Yeah.
And then there was like just 10 years of periodic, recreational use, which ended in something far worse. And I didn't know I was vulnerable to it. Yeah. I didn't know that there was a set of circumstances that would see me find my way to really misusing. I mean, it's always misuse, isn't it? Yeah. But like really. And I'm kind of happy to know that that's a vulnerability in the sense that for as long as I don't go back to it, there is no, there's no chance of, what I mean? It's that simple. It's just don't do that.
Don't do that.
Which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I think there's a danger in even like seemingly recreational use. Because if you're doing something once every 2 weeks, irrespective of what you're doing in between that, cryotherapy, exercising, long walks, whatever takes your fancy, you're still going back to that thing and what's it for? So I kind of wrestle with it a bit because it was something that I was called before I ever behaved in a way that was like, and then I think that aided isolating me from my friends and doing things in a, I don't want to say healthy, but I kind of do in a healthier, more recreational fashion. It was during COVID as well. I was isolated by almost default. And then I found my way into doing things in isolation, which wasn't something I'd ever really done, bar maybe once or twice by misadventure. You know what I mean? Ending up on my own. Whereas like this was, I can't handle how I feel in this moment. And not to say that what was happening should or would be tolerable to anyone. It was, you know, it was, home life was very fractious. It was bad. And I couldn't sit with those feelings. And it was exhausting. I started to make really impulsive and really, really silly decisions to cope. And it was anything but coping. And like the shame that you have to sit with to get beyond that versus just continuing. The shame hits you in the hard day, you know, in the hard light of day when you're sober again. You know, what the fuck have I done? But can't sit with this feeling either. And I don't think men at the best of times are good with sitting with how they feel. Then I began escaping versus enhancing. And it was dangerous, man. Like there was, you know, mixing uppers and downers and all sorts of stuff that I used to, you know, there's friends that would tell you, you know, I've wanted to fight them for telling me they're taking a Valley or a Xanax after doing a load of packet. Because the lift can't go up and down at the same time. One of my friends put me right in my place. He was just like, listen, if you knew there was a chance that it could have had, you know, that effect on you, then it wasn't misadventure. You weren't just being stupid, were you? You know, that fucked me up because I'm like, I could have put my kid through what I went through because things aren't good at home, diddums, you know, tiny violins. Pull your fucking self together. Man. And I did eventually. You know, it's not to say that what was going on should have been tolerable, but it was still all my decisions and I own that. And they were fucking poor. Mate, I woke up in a puddle of my own puke. I could have choked to death.
Man.
Just what? For what?
For what?
For what? How did I find my way there?
And for someone who is quite open, you know, I feel like you've always been someone who's been talking in a kind of open way. You know, we still have these demons that can kind of like creep up on us and keep us from the world. Do you know what I mean? That can become quite insular and kind of quite on our own. I have that sometimes, right? I need to talk, right? Because I'm someone who doesn't naturally want to. I'm like there's something inert in me. I think it's just an upbringing thing where it's just like you don't fucking air your dirty laundry, right? And like you don't tell people the truth, and you don't, you know, it's just a weird thing that I've got, and like I've had to force myself out of that mentality, you know. But I've only had positives from that. It's like the word addict. Like I've had a real weird relationship with that word as well, like because I needed that word. Like that word held me together, right? Because without that word, I was off to the races, you know. But if I held on to that word, I was like, that keeps me in line with this program and this thing. And this
right. See, that's what I was saying about. I would never take that away from someone, but in my situation, I just didn't.
But then now I'm in a weird place with it because I'm like, I feel like it's quite restrictive in a way for me now. And I'm kind of loosening this kind of like grasp that this thing has on me. And I'm kind of going, I am an addict, but I'm also so much more, which has taken some work to get to. You know, but yeah, it's a weird one.
It's a great. I mean, I guess that point of admission, if it gets you to where you need to be in order to start getting better, it's important. But to your point, you are so much more than that. That's a thing. You know, and labels, they're not. It's not you entirely.
I mean, we briefly touched on it before the interview, before the chat, and I kind of like I've been having a really weird. Kind of experience over the last kind of year with medication. When I got diagnosed with ADHD, it took me probably about a year to go onto medication, right? Because I was like, I am an addict. I can't take anything mind altering. And I was like, I'm going to take something every day that's going to change my
neurochemistry.
My neurochemistry. I was like, that's a no-brainer for me. I can't go near it. And then the more I thought about it, and the more I didn't see, I had this diagnosis, but nothing was getting better, right? And I was like, I've had this diagnosis. In fact, everything seems to be more of a mess because I seem to be learning more stuff and just kind of like it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse.
There's a lot of talk around that I see online. I think I've watched one video and I just see so much of it now, and there is apparent regression.
That's exactly
my. Stop pretending. You stop trying to show up in a way that isn't authentic.
That's exactly what it was. And like almost like what you were talking about earlier with excuses. I was like, oh, I've got an excuse. Like it was a weird fucking thing, right? It's just I was just ADHD. You know, it's like, well, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's to still be a shit human. You know, so it's like it's not.
You can have ADHD
excuse.
and be a or you can have ADHD and not,
and not be a. Exactly. There's the two choices. You know, you know. So I found it really difficult, and then I made the decision to trial medication, right? And it was honestly a life-changing experience for me. Like it gave me something which I'd never had in my life. Right? It took me a long time it took me a few months to understand what medication it was and what kind of dose I was going to be on, and kind of like that took a little bit of fluctuation. Yeah. And when I first started taking it, that feeling of something's in me, you know, was really uncomfortable for me. And like, because it was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever done speed, but like it felt like it felt like just when you start doing speed and you haven't come up yet, you know, but that edgy feeling,
the anticipation,
always. And I was like, oh, this is horrible. Yeah, this is horrible.
It is an amphetamine.
It is an amphetamine, you know, but it was just the wrong dose for me, and I just kind of worked out in time, you know. But I had this really weird relationship, and then I had this kind of like amazing experience with medication, right? And like it changed my fucking life. Like I was like, I am who I say I am. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Which was a weird thing to say out loud, but like
it's not weird.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm who I say I am.
It provides a consistency that didn't exist before. When you said you had difficulty on it, I struggled. So I started medication, and then I was like, whoa, is this how, you know, quote unquote normal people feel? Yeah. And it was good, but then the afternoons were really difficult. So I began on methylphenidate, which I was taking twice a day, and the fall off was horrible. At the end of the day, it was like all the noises coming back. It was just like someone turning the volume up on my internal monologue, and it was awful. So then I started taking clonidine in the evening, but I was like, am I just going to be taking more and more? So I wanted to, and then I transferred over to methylphenidate XL, which is extended release, and that was better up until a point, but then my dose went up and it just flattened me a bit. So I felt like I was, you know, to your point about that feeling of just that anticipation or that sort of, it was like I was awake throughout my days, but I wasn't present. Yeah. And so I had a day off of medication, and I was like, my God, I feel fucking incredible. Let me just stop medication. Yeah. Idiot. Rumination began really quickly. Like there was a few good days, and then it just, you know, it went back to all the things I was kind of familiar with. And so I had a conversation with my psychiatrist about changing medication, and I did. And now I'm on Elvans, XL, the extended release one, at a really low dose, 20 milligrams. And it doesn't do the work for you. You still have to actively try and, you know, do the things that you want to do and make those decisions. But I feel like I've got, you know, the wherewithal to do that. Yeah. I hate being owing to a substance, though. Yeah. But in a world which doesn't facilitate or isn't conducive to me being healthy and happy, I don't feel shame in saying that you know, this makes things livable, to be honest.
And if I was living in a different world, I wouldn't necessarily.
Well, you wouldn't even be diagnosed, because you wouldn't need a diagnosis. It would just be a difference. It wouldn't be pathologized. It would just be a difference. And that's ultimately what it is, right? It's evolutionary. It is entirely evolutionary. To that, though, that winds me up when people say, oh my God, there's overdiagnosis. There's not. We just know what it is now. I'm glad to have the diagnosis now and to be able to understand, and I probably could have done with it 10 years earlier. It would have saved me a lot of shit.
What will you thank yourself for in 6 months? Let's make sure it's your health. On this show, we talk a lot about moving forward one step at a time. We're not about being perfect, but trying to be more intentional with the choices we make. And that has to include your health. I like the idea that small choices I make now can make a huge difference later on. That's why I've partnered with Randox Health. I recently took their Everyman Health Assessment, which looks at 150 different health markers like nutrition, hormones, heart, liver and kidney health to give you a clear picture of how your body is really doing. If, like me, you're often short on time, it's great that there's no GP referral needed. You simply sign up online, go visit one of their local clinics in the UK and Ireland, and you get your results in the Randox Health app within 2 hours of your sample reaching their labs. Repeat testing is even included after 6 months, so you can track your progress over time. They also offer an Every Woman Health Assessment designed specifically around women's health. Take care of your health today and into the future. You can save 20% on all health checks now with the code OTM20 at randoxhealth.com. Were you frustrated that you didn't get it 10 years old?
I just couldn't believe how ignorant I'd been.
Yeah.
Like all the work around mental health advocacy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like all the work. And but this is the thing, right? It's not a mental health issue. We suffer mental health. We suffer with our mental health because of undiagnosed and therefore unmanaged, or misdiagnosed and therefore mismanaged, you know? And we suffer with mental health as a product of that.
Yeah.
But it's not a given. It's not a mental health issue.
The ADHD
it's
or the autism isn't a
they're
mental
differences in our brain. They're not mental health issues.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just didn't know what the fuck they were.
Yeah.
I thought it was just being a bit fidgety.
Yeah.
And I apart from like, I guess stimming, humming, I don't really present as really that physically hyperactive, and perhaps that's because I've suppressed it. I used to get in trouble in primary school for just constantly like, I guess, being fit. So that's gone from me now.
Yeah.
For the most part. When I'm alone at home now, I'm way more comfortable.
Yeah.
But this idea around masking, I'm like, well, what's my authentic self? What have I been restricting? What have I been suppressing? How do I now approach life from a place of authenticity when I've been disconnected from, you know, and the feelings that I want to, it's weird, right? I feel like I want to almost reconnect to the child that didn't want to put his school uniform on because that was authentic.
Yeah, mate, I know exactly what you're saying. A big part of your story, right, if you're happy to share about it, is your dad.
Yeah, man.
Right. And I just wanted to kind of get into that a little bit, if that's all right with you. Are you happy to talk about that? Yeah. I mean, so what happened there, mate?
So I was asleep. I was in kind of in between places. So I was back at my nan's, I was 24, and it was a Wednesday morning, and she opened my door. I jumped out of my sleep and she just said, "Stephen, your dad's dead. He's hung himself."
Fucking hell, mate.
And I've not spoken to him since I was 18, but I always held on to the idea that I would.
Yeah.
And always wanted to. Last thing I said to him was on the phone, because we were going to meet up after Christmas. I'd reached out to him, which I said I wouldn't do again. But I did. And then I'd gone to buy something in the sales, a computer game or something, and I was in the Walthamstow shopping centre outside the Burger King, and he phoned up, and he was a bit, I see it now, you know, I can hear it. And he was a bit nervous. And he's like, "So you're going to come and see Jackie and the kids, his wife and his stepkids?" And I was like, it was the first time, because I spent my whole life blaming myself and never really being able to speak to what I felt, or even being able to express in silly ways and say, "I fucking hate you, you fucking hurt me, why do you keep fucking disappearing?" I never said it to him because I felt responsible for why he wasn't there, which every kid does, because you're egocentric until you're between the age of 7 and 9, right? The world exists only in relation to you, and you can't really understand anyone else's place in it. And but that carried on into my adult life, and for the first time I went, no, I'm not coming to play Happy Families. This is about you and me having a conversation as an adult, which we've never had, and trying to put some of this to bed so we can have a proper relationship moving forward. It might not have been that articulate. And he just started to stutter, and I went, "Do you know what, if I ever see you again, I'm going to knock you out," which I wouldn't have, but I was entitled to say that because I couldn't articulate, again, couldn't sit with the feelings, right? I felt all sorts, but mostly let down in that moment. But I realized that he was nervous because he'd never been held to account by me, ever. And I wasn't looking back yet a man. I'd argue I'm only growing into that now. But I felt like a man at that point. You know, I was an adult. Like, and it was the first time that I'd ever really spoke up to him. And put the phone down, and that was it. They were the last words we had. As I understand it now, and there's still stuff to unpick and find out, I've kind of been avoiding it because it doesn't change anything. And also his decision was entirely his responsibility, which was why I was able to carry him into the church. Because, you know, irrespective of my ill feelings towards what was his family, because of the way she got in between him seeing me, I still can't hold her accountable for that because it was his decisions. No one can get in the way of me seeing my kid. You know what I mean? It's just not happening. And perhaps that's because of knowing what it feels like. I'd like to think it's just because I'm a good bloke. Part of me is anyway. I still to and fro like about so many parts of him doing what he did, the impact it had outside of it, why he would have done it. And I feel so like I owe him apologies. I do apologize to him because I thought, you know, and I've said this to people, you know, you never have to worry about that. For me, it's just never, I'm not that type of person. And then I found out there's any number of times when I did drugs in isolation that I could have found my way to that same place.
Yeah.
It's circumstantial, and I think it is for everyone. And my ignorance towards it almost made me more vulnerable because I just didn't understand.
Yeah. When you're a kid, you kind of like, I don't know, you gather this information of the scenarios that you're experiencing. Right. And you kind of like, and that can inform decisions that you make as an adult.
Yeah.
Right. That's been my story.
Yeah. Everyone's, isn't it?
Everyone's story, right? So it's like, and obviously your mum wasn't present when you were a kid? Or was present?
She was far more present than my dad.
Right.
And I don't know if that was the significance. I don't know if that's why there was like just this real sort of, I don't know, maybe I took that for granted. I don't know what it was, but I felt that the bond with my dad was so much more significant.
Right.
Even though he wasn't there. Yeah, and he was there and then he wasn't. And then he was there and then he wasn't. He was such a good man. Like, he got all sorts of things right. I mean, he had me when he was 18. My mum was 16. What were they meant to do, mate? Yeah, I'm 42 now and going, like openly going, I think I'm just growing into authentic adulthood and understanding what that is.
Absolutely.
Still can't open letters, as we spoke about. But like,
how do you deal with that?
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
So I don't hold any of that against him. But my mum was there consistently. I saw her weekly and, she's still there now.
What dad are you trying to be?
An available one.
Good.
Do you know my great grandmother and I mean honestly available. Like I catch myself sometimes, and he catches me as well, looking at my phone. I'm like, what the fuck am I letting a phone dilute my time with you for?
Yeah.
Children can be the most dysregulating thing in the world because by default they're dysregulated. They're happy, they're sad, they're angry, they're happy, they're sad. Then they express all of it. It's beautiful. It's fucking amazing. Gorgeous. Like
incredible.
But that's also really. I get how that can be really difficult for people. It's definitely been difficult for me at times, especially with the addition of a fractious relationship. But patience for that, giving a child a space, like to just go, okay, here's safe boundary, right? So if you run over here, there's an arm, I'm going to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Lose your shit. Yeah. I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'll get down to your level. I'll make sure you know I'm here. I'm not going to put you on a naughty step. I'm not going to reprimand you. I'm not going to try and discipline you beyond safe boundary and positive reinforcement because you can't do that to a 4-year-old. They don't have a brain capable of being disciplined. Yeah. They only understand shame and fear. So unless that's what you want to do to your kid.
What you want to inflict on them.
Then parent by way of care, not control, which I guess is really hard if you've been brought up in a way that was very controlling.
Yeah.
Read a book on neurological development as well. It removes the stress part. You're still fucking tired, but a lot of the stress just falls by the wayside because you understand that you can't put your expectations that are beyond them. It's just it's been the most remarkable thing as far as learning patience and then being able to take that patience and apply it elsewhere in life. And it's not for him to have come along and taught me anything, but he fucking has.
Yeah. What's the biggest message you'd like fathers who are struggling to hear?
My advice to them would be recognize what you're going through as yours and start owning your decisions.
Yeah.
And start living with intent. It's scary.
Okay. People kind of approached me because of the podcast and asked me for who are in the depths of horrible places in their life, and they're kind of like really, they can't see a way out, right? And it's like, I've been there and it sounds like you've been there, and it's like, and something happens where we can see like we put one step in front of another and we get to a different destination, right? Yeah. And it's like, and I'm trying to think what that thing is to say to that person, because I get it a lot and I don't know what that is. Yeah. I'm like, what is that piece of advice that I give them? I wish I could fucking write in a sentence because I don't know what it is.
I think the most powerful thing for me was realizing that I was responsible for my decisions and I couldn't keep handing over power to what someone else was doing.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're going to keep doing that and you're not going to stop and I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to die. Like, you're lashing out at me. I'm not lashing out at you, but I'm causing hurt by way of hurting myself. So it's crazy. Like, yes, I've managed to, take that first step into, adulthood as a man by way of going, I'm not just going to be angry, but if all I'm going to be is hurt and I can't deal with that hurt without trying to escape it by way of drinking and doing drugs and nearly fucking killing myself, then that's no good either. So I have to take responsibility for the choices that I'm making and stop making them. They're not just reactions, they are indeed actions.
Yeah.
You know, and then I can't exist within this anymore. I have to take myself away.
Yeah.
I think I'm really susceptible to, I'm really susceptible to language and words. And I think we all are. I've been reading a book called The Expectation Effect, or listening to an audiobook. And it's remarkable that the science behind the impact of what we're told and then how we continue after that, you know, especially as children, the things we hear and what we take on. I was always told I was shy. I wasn't shy. I was considered. I was also autistic. But I, you know, I wasn't shy. I was considered, but I took on being shy.
Yeah.
And people are told much worse. And when people talk about protecting their energy, I don't think they really realize what they're doing at a physiological level. You know what I mean? If you're under constant criticism, or, you know, anything you do isn't good enough, anything you don't do isn't enough, that's the definition of toxicity. And you're completely hijacked emotionally by that. And emotional stress is completely draining, especially for someone who has less access to executive function anyway.
Yeah.
It becomes impossible to rationalize or make decisions. You know, you become more impulsive. It's been such a lesson for me, just understanding how significant who I keep around me and what I consume in every which way.
Mate, fucking amazing, man. On the Mend, we do something called Music to Men by.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you for 2 songs. Right?
Yeah.
They can be any song you want.
Yeah.
Right. And one of them is to connect with your inner child. That can mean whatever it wants to mean to you. So which song would you say connects to your inner child?
Teenage Dirtbag.
Teenage Dirtbag?
Yeah.
Wait, wicked.
I listened to it with Slimane. He like, Dad, can you put Teenage Dirtbag on? We listened to some wild stuff in the car.
Nice.
But it's just so, I don't know, is liberating the right word?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Just letting go and singing out loud in the car. Man. So much fun. And that, connecting with him as a child enables me to connect with me as a child.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Teenage Dirtbag.
And song now that connects to where you are right now.
Not to be too morbid, my funeral song would be Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day.
Yeah, great.
And I feel like midlife is probably quite an apt place from where, like, I'm not ignorant to mortality now, but I still feel I've got my last bits of youthfulness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Physically, anyway, and energetically. Unless some of the biohackers I follow are to be believed and peptides are working.
Exactly.
But I just think there's never been a song that's captured nostalgia in the way that song does. It's so beautifully melancholy. Like, it's that, you know, like, God, I'm so sad to die, but I'm so happy I lived. It's that feel. It's just so much feeling. Like, when I'm upset, I said this recently to Pete Wicks, you know, we always try and fix. We never really sit in people's discomfort because we get uncomfortable, and it's not for us to tell someone not to cry, not to be upset, not to be unhappy. Aid them in not wallowing in it. But it's so important to feel what you feel. And when I look back to my childhood, when I was angry, I was listening to songs that let me lose my shit. When I was thoughtful, I listened to stuff that was more observational. And then when I was sad, I listened to fucking sad songs.
Yeah.
I love that feeling of, and sometimes just embracing it, like
letting
it up and out, having a good fucking cry.
Yeah, man. That's the beauty of music. I think it allows you to go there.
And I feel it. Like I feel.
Yeah.
And it was always my safe space. It just, whatever I was feeling, I never wanted to listen to happy songs when I was sad. It wasn't about clawing my way out of it. It was like letting it wash over me.
Yeah.
And the music was missing in my life for a bit, but it's back.
Mate, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're a fucking legend. Guys, thanks for listening. Remember to follow us everywhere you can. Like, subscribe, all that bollocks.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. As always, if you or someone you know is struggling, you're not alone. We've listed some very, very trusted places in our show notes, so check them out. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you soon.